I logged the contact at 0411 ship time, and the first thing I wrote in the tow log was wrong. I called it debris. We were 6 hours into a routine haul, dragging a dead colony relay hull back to the breakers at Kourou Station, when the diagnostic pattern came through on a band so old the tug system flagged it as a hardware fault before it flagged it as a signal. I almost cleared it without looking. Corrigan didn't. "That's not noise," he said. He'd been running comms on this boat for 11 years, and he had a way of going still when something mattered, like the stillness itself was a kind of listening. "That's structured. That's a diagnostic loop." "From where?" He didn't answer right away. He was already pulling the bearing, cross-referencing it against every cataloged source in range, and coming up with nothing, because the band it was riding belonged to a joint hull survey Accord Earth had signed with 3 different shipyard consortiums 110 years ago, back when we still needed the help. 2 of those consortiums didn't exist anymore. The band was supposed to be a courtesy listen, low priority, the kind of thing that got reviewed once a quarter by someone with better things to do. "It's coming from a structure," Corrigan said. "Not a ship, something stationary. Whatever's broadcasting it isn't trying to reach anyone. It's just reporting its own condition, over and over. Hull integrity, structural load, pressure differential, like it's talking to itself." I knew what that meant before he finished saying it. A diagnostic loop that nobody's listening to still runs. It runs because the system that built it never had an instruction for stop broadcasting if no one cares. It just reports. Forever, if it has to. "Range," I said. 40 minutes if we cut the tow loose." I looked at the dead relay hull behind us on the long cable, the one we were getting paid to drag home, and I looked at Corrigan, and neither of us said anything about the money, because there wasn't a version of this where we said it out loud and still cut the cable. I cut the cable. The yard was the kind of thing you don't expect to still be standing. A repair dock built into the hollowed-out spine of a dead moon, half its gantry arms sheared off and drifting on their own slow orbits around the wreck of it. The pressure dome cracked along one whole seam so that actual daylight, pale, distant, real daylight from whatever star this system had came bleeding straight through into a structure that was never built to see the sun. We came in slow, running lights cut, and Corrigan found the source in under a minute. A maintenance booth still pressurized, barely, sitting in the lee of a collapsed crane arm like something hiding. There was a single occupant, older than I expected, for whatever this species ran old, moving with the deliberate economy of someone who'd learned exactly how much air they had left and was budgeting it. The voice that came through, once we'd matched frequencies and the translator caught up, was flat in the particular way of someone too tired to be surprised by anything ever again. "You are not the relief crew." "No," I said, "we're not anyone you were expecting." A long pause. I watched through the booth's cracked viewport as the shipwright, that was the word that came closest, in the translation, though it carried more weight than the English allowed, something closer to asterisk, the one who makes broken things whole again, turned to look at the diagnostic console behind them. At the waveform still running across it, patient, indifferent, exactly as it had been running for however many days this had been going on. "That signal," they said, "reports the structural condition of this yard. It is not a request. It has no destination encoded. It was never meant to leave this dome." "It left the dome." "I know what it was asterisk meant asterisk to do," the shipwright said, and for the first time something other than exhaustion moved through their voice, something closer to disbelief, the cold, procedural kind, the kind that comes from a person doing arithmetic they don't want to finish. "I built that loop 40 years ago to track fatigue stress in the support struts. I update it. I have never once transmitted it anywhere. There is no one on the distribution list." "There has never been anyone on the distribution list." "There's a relay housing on your western gantry arm," Corrigan said quietly, reading off his own scan. "Cracked clean through. Probably been cracked for a while. It's been leaking your internal diagnostic onto an old joint survey band hours, every cycle you update that loop. For how long? Looks original to the crack, could be years. The shipwright didn't say anything for a long moment. They looked instead at the gantry arm in question, visible through the cracked dome in the bleeding daylight, hanging at the wrong angle the way a broken limb hangs at the wrong angle. And I understood, watching them look at it, that they were doing the same arithmetic I would have done, counting backward through every cycle that loop had run, every quiet report of failing struts and falling pressure that had gone out into the dark addressed to no one, and landing, every time on the same number. Nobody was supposed to hear that. This yard built ships, they said finally, repaired them. We restored vessels that other yards had given up on, hulls so far gone the owners came here because we were the last ones who'd still try. I have done this work for 40 years. I do not call for help. I am the one people call. Today somebody called for you instead, I said. It just took 110 years to get the message. There wasn't much of the yard left to save. We confirmed that within the hour full structural assessment, every support strut at or past failure tolerance, the kind of damage that doesn't get fixed, only outlived. The shipwright already knew. They'd known longer than we had. What there was the shipwright. And 11 others, it turned out, sheltering in pressurized pockets scattered through the wreck, rationing air on a structure that had been quietly dying around them for longer than any of them had admitted to each other. We didn't have the capacity to save the yard. One tug, built for towing dead hulls, was never going to restore a collapsing dock to a moon that didn't want it back, so we didn't try to save the yard. We pulled people instead. 12 of them, one compartment at a time, Corrigan running the cable rig and me running the count. The shipwright directing us through the wreck with the same flat economy they'd used to budget their own air. Because even now, even with the dome cracked open and daylight pouring through onto a structure coming apart under their feet, they still knew this place better than the wreck itself did. The last one out was the shipwright. They paused at the airlock threshold. One hand on the frame, looking back into the dark the way you look at something you built. The diagnostic loop is still running, they said. It will keep reporting structural failure on a band no one official is listening to a yard that will not exist in a few hours, until the transmitter itself fails. Let it run, I said. They looked at me. Somebody's listening now, I said. Doesn't cost us anything to keep listening. We logged the final structural collapse 4 hours later, watching the long-range feed from a safe distance, the dome folding inward the way old things fold when there's nothing left holding the shape together. The shipwright watched it too, from the cargo bay, still and silent, and I didn't try to say anything, because there wasn't anything to say that the silence wasn't already saying better. What I could do, I did. I logged the band designation in the tow report, flagged for permanent monitoring, and noted that the original Joint Survey Accord, dead in every practical sense for 60 years, should stay exactly where it was on Earth's side. Open, low priority, unattended, listened to anyway. I didn't put in the report that the shipwright spent the whole return trip at the cargo bay viewport, watching the dark where the yard used to be. I didn't put in that on the second day they finally asked me, not the tug, not Earth, asterisk me, whether we still had a yard rated for hull restoration work. The real kind, the kind that takes a structure other people have given up on and makes it whole again. I told them we did. I told them Carew Station had a berth standing empty and a backlog of broken ships nobody else wanted to touch, and that the foreman there had a habit of hearing anyone who showed up knowing how to fix what other people called unfixable. They didn't say thank you. I don't think the word translates the way we mean it, not really, not for someone who spent 40 years being the one others called. What they said once, quietly, near the end of the trip, was simpler than that. I did not send that signal to be heard. I know, I said. You came anyway. That's the job, I said and left it there, because some things don't need the second sentence. The diagnostic ban is still flagged in our system, still low priority, still, technically, nobody's responsibility. We still listen.